I have a 6.4, a 2008 6.4 Powerstroke diesel. I'm going to go ahead and do a fuel filters on it. I want to go over a few things and show you. I'm also going to cover a little bit of the 6.0 Powerstroke because they're very similar, except for the upper fuel filter is a little bit different. But as far as the procedure, basically the same thing. Some of the things I want to go over. I live in the desert Southwest. Out here in this dry climate, we normally don't have the water and fuel light issue, and we're actually taught that if you don't have an issue with it, we don't drain it. Maybe in some of the places where you guys have a lot of humidity, you have to change it frequently. But I have found that those lights are very reliable if working properly, and I almost never see a problem with them. If the lights are on, it usually does have contamination and drain them. So pretty much with me, my rule of thumb is if the light's not on, I don't drain them. But then again, that may be unique to my climate. This being the 6.4, this is the upper fuel filter. You have two different filters in them. It doesn't matter if it's the 6.0 or the 6.4, even the 6.7, they have an upper and a lower filter. You have the 10 micron being your lower one or your primary, and your secondary is a 5 micron, the smaller one. This is for the 6.4. We'll go over that one. And then the 6.0 has this smaller one that we go over and do. Both of them have an O-ring in the housing that we have to change. One of the important things I do want to mention, the Fords versus the aftermarket. If you find a good quality aftermarket, and there are some out there, or if you get a Raycor brand, same things, they're pretty good, you can use them. But a few things you want to look for if you're not going to use the genuine. Make sure that you get them with a new O-ring so they seal better. You don't get the diesel bypassing, not working. And another thing is this notch. This notch right here, this tab, it's not a notch, I'm sorry, this tab right here, and you also see a bleed hole. You see some of the aftermarket filters, they don't have the tab and they don't have the bleed hole, so it never gets all the air out of your fuel system. And if you notice, if you have some of the cheaper aftermarket filters, you may only either see, look at the filter next time you take it out, you might only see the black or the areas where it's actually done any filters at the bottom. So you have air trapped in your system, and you also only utilizing half of your filter. So if you don't get the genuine, at least look for the ones that do have the bleed hole and a tab to index it, because as we tighten it, it's going to go to the top, lock, and with the air hole, it's going to cause all the fuel, the air to bleed out, rise, fill up the whole cavity, and use the whole filter. So it's a lot better, again, get the right filter. And also this, you see this looks like a webbing around it. This is a water trap. Some of the cheaper filters on the bottom, you look at them, you just see the paper element, the cartridge like this, without this wrap around it. You're missing out the opportunity to have the water filter out too. So whether it's a genuine or some good imitations, make sure you look for the tab, the bleed hole, and the water filter being around the filter. That's some of the things you want to look for. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I change them on the car and the tools I use. People's always ask me about what tools I use to do it, so let's go ahead and cover that. For the upper fuel filter and the lower on the 6.4, on the 6.0 they're different, but on the 6.4 I'll use this. This is a Matco tool. It's pretty good. It has the 36mm socket, even though it's hard to see inside there. There's actually a 36mm six-sided there. Also have these slots are for the 7.3 fuel filter. So this is a pretty cool fuel filter socket. For the 6.0, or for this one, we use this two-sided socket. It has the 36mm on one side. For the on the 6.4, it does your upper and your lower with the 36mm. On the 6.0, you have the 36 for your lower, and on the upper one, on the 6.0, you have your 24mm. So you just take your socket, flip it around. Same socket does that, and also does your oil filter. So that's pretty good with the snap-on. Or if you just have one truck, you want to save money, get these off eBay. You can get these for pretty much under 10 bucks. 36mm socket does your oil filter, does your upper and lower fuel filter on the 6.4. And if you have a 6.0, you will have to get a different one to do your upper one. On the 6.0, I would definitely recommend using a socket. Don't use a 1/2-inch drive, you just end up breaking your filter lid. So let's go ahead and change these filters out, and I'll show you a trick at the end on the 6.4 that you really should do to keep from getting air in the system and getting yourself a no start. So let's go ahead and do the filters. Okay, I always start off with my upper fuel filter first. Use secondary fuel filter, upper fuel filter, however you want to refer to it as. But it's the on the 6.4 you have two caps. With the 6.0 you do two. But these ones look very similar on the 6.4. But the fuel filter one is the one that's off-centered to the driver's side. So the one that's right down the middle is your oil filter one. The upper fuel filter is the one that you want to have here. Now, if we're going by the book, Ford would tell you disconnect the battery cables, relieve the pressure, and do all the other kind of stuff. In the real world, we just unscrew carefully. And of course, don't have your key on or anything like that. Some of this I'm going to take for granted that we don't do. So the key's off, vehicle's been sitting for a few minutes. Pressure would have all bled down. Let's go ahead and loosen this slowly. You heard just leave the air out there. We'll unscrew it. Just go slow here, give it a chance for the fuel to go down. Because remember, this whole cavity is full, so it is going to leak some out here when we do this. Okay, it's loose. Work it up here. Pull it straight up, don't break your stem. Just pull it up here, take it out. Now what I normally do is I'll just look inside here. If you have any water issues, you'll see it inside there. This one looks nice and clean. Filter looks good. We're just doing this for maintenance. So we just pull the filter. It does snap in here. So we'll pull the filter out. I'm going to go clean the cap out and replace the O-ring. I'll be right back. Okay, we have it all open, and as you can see down inside there, if you had water in there, it's just like water and oil. It does not mix. If there was water in there, you would see the water drops. It'll be on bottom, and you would physically see a water droplet down there that would move. See if we shake it. No problems. There's not any water, no contamination. We don't have any dirt. And also, if you look inside your cap here, it looks pretty clean. So I'm not going to go ahead and take all the extra time, wipe it all out, and get different stuff in there. Honestly, I'll probably get more damage or more stuff in there, more fibers and threads if I tried to wipe it. This one looks pretty good, so I'm not going to worry about it. Just, if you notice the position of the O-ring, just so when you put it back on, you have it. You just squeeze it and take the O-ring off. Or if you don't want to do that, just get yourself a pick tool. Just get underneath it and pull it off. And then you just take a new filter, snap it in there. You can see where the tabs lock inside. So just take them, push them together. It's locked in there. And put your new O-ring on. You put your O-ring on first, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Now if you notice, the other one, as I was taking this off, it was squeaking, giving me a hard time. Probably the previous person didn't lubricate it. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of lubrication on here. Doesn't matter if you use grease or some dielectric grease, anything you have. If you don't have anything, just use WD-40. Or if you really don't have anything, at least use some of the diesel fuel. But put some kind of lubrication on here so it goes on with a little bit of lubrication, not fight as going down. So we're going to go ahead and push it down. Tighten it up here. Of course, get it started straight there. That's important. Snug it up. Now it calls for 27 newton meters, which is roughly 18-20 foot-pounds. And you just snug it up. Don't over tighten it. Don't break it. Don't crack it. Especially the 6.0s will break. These ones are pretty stout, but still, just snug it up. As long as it doesn't leak, we'll wipe it off. Let's go ahead and do the lower one. Then we're going to cycle the key and check for leaks. Okay, this is a four-wheel drive, so we have the drive shaft down here. It also makes it a little bit tighter to get the fuel filter out. But I'm doing it here on the ground, just as I would suspect most of you guys at home are doing. Now this is your water drain valve that's right here. It's a lever, and it's pretty handy. It's pretty easy. On the 6.0, you have a 6mm Allen to take out, and if you use the shorter end of the Allen wrench here, you get the 6.0 ones out. But on this one, it's pretty easy. You just take it, flip the lever, and then let the fuel drain out, the water and the drain out if there's any in there. Again, being out here in the desert Southwest, we don't have much of a water and fuel issue. I'm sure you guys may have out there in the east or wherever you have high humidity. Out here, almost never get them. I mean, I may only get 1 or 2 a year that has water and fuel, and that's usually from sabotage. So it's pretty rare out here for me. So I'm going to go ahead and change the filter as soon as this thing's done draining, and go from there and show you what we do on the lower fuel filter. Okay, on the 4-wheel drive units, well, pretty much even on the 2-wheel drive units, I'll do it too. I like doing it this way because it's a lot easier to work through everything. I'll get a 2-foot extension, and I'll just go back here behind the skid plate, go in through the brake line and the wires, and I can go right up to the cap. I'll take my socket, put it on the fuel filter cap, put my extension on it, and I can just work it off. So that's the way I like to do these. Okay, we have the socket on there. One of the things I like to do is take a rag and stick it up here on the frame rail. That's just to keep it, because the way the frame's designed, it's going to run all down and end up going on the skid plate and going on you. So I usually stick a rag in there, and of course I do have a drain bucket down here that's catching it. So let's go ahead and take it loose. And as you start to see the fuel come out, you just slow down a little bit. Move it out slow. So now I just let my socket extension go up there. I'll take my cap loose. I bring it down. I just bring it down through the brake lines. Just turn it sideways here for the drive shaft. Check inside. It looks pretty clean, so I don't have any issues with it. Go ahead and pull the fuel filter off. Now when you pull these fuel filters off, pull them out straight, because they're actually wrapped around your fuel pump, and if you break your fuel pump or the tip off your fuel pump, it's going to cost you hundreds of dollars to fix it. So pull them out as straight as possible. Some of these are a little bit of a bear because of the wires inside of there. Bring it down. Now this is what I was talking about too with the genuine fuel filters. If you notice the dirt, it's all the way around. This filter has been working the whole amount of it. When you pull yours out, if you have the aftermarket ones, you're only going to notice that it's black down here. You have not been using your whole fuel filter. So I'm going to wipe my hands off, put the new fuel filter in. Just bring the filter up there, set it inside. It's in. And then make sure you put the new O-ring on your fuel filter cap. In the same way as the upper one, you know, get it, put your O-ring on, lubricate it, otherwise you're going to be fighting it going on this time and fighting it next time taking it off. So go ahead and put it on, lubricate it. Even if you just use some diesel off your hands, just lubricate it. Go ahead and put your filter on, your cap on. Okay, now it's all started straight. Just bring my socket back in. Turn my ratchet the right way. Snug it up. Okay. And here I just pull my socket off first, bring my extension out, my rag out, wipe off the excess fuel. Then let's go up above. I want to show you a trick with these 6.4s. Okay, we have the upper lower fuel filters in, and I want to point something out here. Well, a couple things. We're going to do a different little trick here with a 6.4 that you really want to do. And even though, see if you look down here, even though your engine has been blessed, and it's got the cross on there, you still want to check it, make sure that it's not leaking. So we're going to go ahead and turn the key on, and then come back out and look at it, because when I turn the key on, it's going to get pressurized. Okay, I have the key on. Now on the 6.4s, they're run for roughly 30 seconds with your key on. And Ford recommends that we turn this key on and off at 30-second intervals 6 times to purge the air. And you may just think, I'm full of crap, that you guys don't do that. That's good. And we do this 2 or 3 times a day, and maybe only once a month we get caught with it. But every now and then you will have one that has the air in the system. If you want to prevent it and not get the air in your system, just cycle your key the 6 times like they recommend at 30-second intervals. So that was one. I'm going to go ahead and turn the key off, then back on again for another 30 seconds. Keys off. Keys back on. And again, I'm going to do this for 6 times, and that's just because, well, 2 things. One, I'm looking for leaks right now, and the other is I'm purging the air. If you do it this way, you'll never have yourself an issue, and you can go and drive down the street and not have a problem. If you don't do it this way, you're going to end up having to have yourself a problem and get air in the system to where you're going to take this out and do a bleed on it. So if you want to prevent from having to bleed the whole fuel system, which I covered in another video, then just do the key cycle the 6 times and be happy with it. So that's my tips and tricks on doing the fuel filters on a 6.0, 6.4. Thank you.